this is one of the biggest reasons why the whole thing started as well, because he is anti-India and he was killed right before elections. Sharif Omar Hadi, why is Bangladesh on fire over his death? Let's check. So this all started with him. Bangladesh, this guy here, he is Hadi. He's Sharif Osman Hadi. So Sharif here was a guy who was a leader of the protests that were going on. This guy is anti-Indian. As he called it, like the Indian hegemony or the economic hegemony or whatever, like the control over that India has over its neighbors. When you say neighbors, I specifically do mean Bangladesh, Myanmar, whatever, because India does put a lot of pressure on them to, you know, when it comes to trading, it is the big player. It is, they have to trade with India eventually. Sheikh Hasina historically was like a really supporter of the Indian, especially the Modi government. I keep saying that is because they are sheltering her right now. Even after all of her crimes, even after everything, they're still sheltering her. I'm not saying she shouldn't be sheltered, because she has, what's the word for it? She has an execution order against her, which I do not think is right. I do not support even judicial executions of this sort. Forget extrajudicial. There is no reason for a government to be able to kill someone, no matter how bad, because how we deal with our worst criminals is how we deal with our public. Because the only difference between you and the worst criminal is a government order. So a government always should be lenient, and the worst thing that can happen is perpetual jail term. That is what I believe. Violent protests, this was on the 19th of December. This was written on the 19th, so like 2 days ago. Violent protests have erupted in multiple cities in Bangladesh after the prominent youth leader Sharif Osman Hadi died at Singapore General Hospital on Thursday. The reason he was taken to Singapore because they thought that India is part of shooting him. Because he was anti-India. He recently had posted a picture of expanding Bangladesh into its like unifying the entirety of Bengal and Bangladesh and regions around it, whatever. People spread it forward. Hence, sorry, excuse me. I'm pretty sure I got the sickness from my partner. Anyway, yeah, he had posted that. Again, if you have a link, I would like to show it. I could not find it myself. Hadi died of a gunshot wound and sustained during the assassination attempt in Bangladesh's capital in Dhaka. He was not transferred to Kolkata, which would have been the normal procedure for something like this, but he was transferred to Singapore. Going to Singapore may have been the reason why he might have died after it, because it was just far too far away. He was 32. He was a prominent leader in Bangladesh's 2024 student-led uprising. He acted as a spokesperson for the Inqilab Manch, or the Platform for Revolution, and was planning to stand as a member of the parliament for the Dhaka 8 constituency in the Bijoner area of the city in the upcoming elections, expected in 2026. Hadi was also an outspoken critic of India, where Bangladesh's outside Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina fled following her uprising last year, and its influence on domestic politics in Bangladesh. Remember, due to Sheikh Hasina being the Prime Minister for so long, the authoritative Prime Minister, India got a lot of say in what Bangladesh does or doesn't do. When and where and how did Hadi die? Authorities in Singapore and Inqilab Manch announced his death on Thursday. He died in a hospital in Singapore where he was receiving treatment after being wounded in an assassination attempt on September 12th. He was shot in the head by 2 assailants on motorcycles, which pulled up beside the battery-powered auto rickshaw he was traveling in. He was rushed to the Dhaka Medical College Hospital. Hadi was found to have suffered brainstem damage and was transferred from Dhaka to Singapore General Hospital Neurosurgical Intensive Care Unit on December 15th. He was shot on 12th. Yeah, he was shot on 12th, transferred to Singapore by 15. Despite the best efforts of the doctors, Hadi succumbed to his injuries, Singapore's Minister of Foreign Affairs said in the statement on Thursday. In a Facebook post late on Thursday, Inqilab Manch announced, in a struggle against Indian hegemony, Allah has accepted the Great Revolution, Osman Hadi, as a martyr. Okay. On Friday, the group of mourners began to assemble in Shahabag neighborhood in central Dhaka, awaiting Hadi's body, which was expected in the capital in the evening, Al Jazeera's Mohammad Ahmad Sujan reported from Dhaka. Later, Inqilab Manch wrote on Facebook that the vehicle carrying the body of its former spokesperson was heading to Shahabag in central Dhaka. At the family's request, Hadi's body was not taken directly to Dhaka University Central Mosque right away, as the group had reported earlier, but would be taken there on Saturday, the post said. How was Bangladesh to respond to the shooting? On December 12, Bangladesh police launched a hunt for the attackers who shot Hadi. The country's counter-terrorism unit and the RAB, the Rapid Action Battalion, is also involved. So they did think that this was not a regional thing, this might be an international thing. In the news released on December 13th, the police released stills of CCTV footage of the incident showing two key suspects. Police offered a reward of 5 million taka, about $42,000, for information leading to the arrest. Both men in CCTV stills are seen wearing black clothes and glasses, while one was wearing a black hoodie. The other is wearing a black, okay, too much black. I don't know why they didn't do it in like pink or something. Like, general question, you would stand out much less. Bangladeshi newspaper The Daily Star reported that the country's police and border guards have arrested at least 20 people linked to the incident so far, but the investigation is on. Currently, I think 10 people have been arrested as well after the man was burnt. But we'll come to it. How was Bangladesh leaders reacted? Muhammad Yunus government expressed his condolences and described Hadi's death as an irreparable loss for the nation. Remember, the Inqilab Morcha was also the one who got Yunus to this place anyway. There is an interview with him with Mehdi when he says like, oh, they were the ones that actually called him like, hey, we need a prime minister. Please be the prime minister. The country's march to democracy cannot be halted through fear, terror, or bloodshed, he said in a televised speech on Thursday. The government also announced special prayer at the mosque after Friday prayers and a half day of mourning on Saturday. We are deeply saddened by the death of Sharif Osman Hadi, spokesperson of Inqilab Manch and an independent candidate for the Dhaka constituency. The acting chairman of Bangladesh National Party BNP, Tariq Rahman, wrote on Facebook. In a news statement with local media reports, the National Citizens Party, NCP, Jesus, why? Whenever I hear NCP, I'm like, oh, fuck. Said it was deeply saddened by Hadi's death and expressed condolences to his family. I'm to Maharashtra bill. There's a like election going on in Maharashtra right now. We have to talk about them later. Obviously, BJP has won. Like, which is the sad part. Protesters are demanding that the resignation of the head of the Ministry of Home Affairs and Ministry of Law, accusing the authorities of failing to ensure Hadi's security, and also demanding a return of the gunmen who may have been fled to India. So this is what happened right after. When the protests began, all of them were claiming that India killed him. Because India has been in a position of the new interim government. They have been shielding Sheikh Hasina for the past year. Like, the current interim government has been continuously asking the return of Sheikh Hasina. But that has not been the case. India has always denied the return, whether either they have never directly denied, mind you. They have denied it in diplomatic ways, like, we will check this out ourselves and then we'll decide, like, the whatever was not fair. Again, they should not be returning Sheikh Hasina at this point, even though I do believe her time in the limelight is over. Like, she should not be returning to politics anytime soon, but we will have to see how those things go. Mostly because this death and the issue with minorities in Bangladesh gives a great opportunity for Sheikh Hasina's return, where they can claim the current government is illegal, it cannot protect the minorities, and that's why India wants a return of the Sheikh Hasina government. And that it's not just Sheikh Hasina, her treasurer or treasury secretary is also in India. They are saying that the gunmen must have be brought to justice as soon as possible. They will continue to protest, which is something, yeah, that is okay, but the protests have turned violent. On the group of protesters gathered outside the head office of the country's leading Bengali language Prothom Alo daily, which they view as taking a pro-India editorial line in Dhaka's Karwan Bazar area. They then surged into the building according to the online portal of various leading media outlets. This is why you don't do violent protests, because they're pointless. A few hundred meters yards away, another group of protesters pushed into the premise of the Daily Star, also viewed as pro-India, and set fire to the building. Again, this is why you do not do violent protests. And that's why countries should not interfere in other countries' shit, like as India has for so long. Like the reason why India is hated in Bangladesh so much is because India has been shielding and helping Hasina for the longest time. And she has been seen as a more and more authoritarian ruler. Like, imagine how India would react if all of the BJP mindset goes away and like everyone just wakes up in like, oh, we want a democracy, and Modi has to flee the country and he goes into like China or something. Or not even China, like let's say Bangladesh or what, Sri Lanka? Sure. What is a non-extradition country for India? I think at this point, because of the failing like what's the international policies, every country is a non-extradition country for India. Anyway, like obviously people are going to hate that country because they're shielding the person who has been the cause of all of that suffering in Bangladesh. Like, even after all this, I do feel for the people of Bangladesh, because at the end of the day, they were the ones suffering. And the current protests are bad. They should not have happened. That is what I'm always going to say. This should have been kept peaceful as much as possible. The anti-India hate in this scenario is a little bit uncalled for, and mostly fueled by the fact that people believe that India did this. Like, India killed their leader. And this should not have been the case. Because you never know. And like, there is no outlet of news saying that, oh, no, India has not done this. See, now I'm not going to put it past the Indian government to not do this, because they have tried to do this. They have done this in Canada, and they have done this and they have tried to do this in America. So I'm not going to put past them to be like, oh, we are definitely not done this. But I don't see the profit here other than instigating a riot right before the elections so they can say that the current government is illegal. Because this was someone who was very influential. We'll see. And people who actually do claim that like the Indian government is very nice because it's our government, like, that's stupid. Never believe that. Like, it's conspiracy, sure. I'm not going to say it's true. It's just an angle. Anyway, what do you think? Tell me in the comments. Soldiers of the paramilitary border guards were deployed outside the two buildings to monitor the situation, but did not immediately take action to disperse the protesters. Local media reported the protesters threw stones at the Assistant High Commission of India in Chattigaon on Thursday. So this is what happened. Okay, then why has there been a stir anger in India? Again, as I said, shielding Hasina, because we have been shielding Hasina for the longest time. We have been supporting that government. One of the reasons why the Hasina government was so much in power, even until 2024, where the government's rating of likelihood, like the favorability of the government was in the tank. We have been shielding that government, and one of the reasons why the government was in power is because of India's backing. For the past 17 years, the Sheikh Hasina rule was actually supported by India. Again, as far as I'm concerned, India should not have been parley to anything because that is not what a good neighbor does. But fine, whatever. This led to the killing of a Hindu man who was accused of blasphemy, which is a bullshit thing. Obviously, there was not blasphemy at all. Like, there is no such thing as blasphemy, to be honest with you. That is my belief. And this guy has done nothing. Even the investigation after revealed that he did not commit any blasphemy. This was just an excuse given for the death of this man. But that excuse is not enough.
Investigators have found no evidence that Deepu Chandra Das, a 25-year-old Hindu man lynched in Bangladesh, made any remarks hurting religious sentiments. Das was brutally attacked outside a garment factory where he worked, allegedly over derogatory comments about Islam. Witnesses reported that a mob beat him to death with sticks and other weapons, then hung his body from a tree on the Dhaka-Mymensingh highway and set it on fire. Disturbing visuals of the attack circulated widely on social media, sparking outrage. A company commander of Bangladesh's Rapid Action Battalion, the country's counterterrorism force, confirmed that no evidence was found suggesting Das wrote anything offensive on Facebook. The officer added that Das was pushed out of the factory by staff as the mob gathered to protect the establishment. 10 people have been arrested in connection with the murder. The interim government led by Muhammad Yunus has condemned the lynching and vowed that those responsible will not be spared.
Bangladesh is once again at a tipping point. The death of prominent youth leader Sharif Osman Hadi has ignited a wave of nationwide protests, arson, and mob violence, threatening the country's fragile democratic transition. From the capital of Dhaka to the industrial hubs of Mymensingh, the Yunus-led interim government is struggling to maintain order as communal violence flare up. The current unrest follows the death of 32-year-old Sharif Osman Hadi, a key figure in the July uprising and a spokesperson for the Inqilab Mancha. Hadi, an outspoken critic of India and the ousted Hasina government, was shot in the head by masked assailants on December 12th while campaigning for the upcoming February elections. After 6 days on life support in Singapore, his passing was confirmed, transforming him into a martyr for his followers and a catalyst for chaos. Late-night arson has struck the heart of Bangladeshi journalism. Mobs targeting what they call pro-India voices attacked the offices of the country's leading newspapers, Protom Alo and the Daily Star. In a harrowing scene, 28 employees were trapped on a 10th-floor rooftop as smoke filled the building. For the first time in nearly 3 decades, both publications were forced to suspend operations. The interim government has condemned these attacks as an assault on the very freedom of expression the revolution sought to protect. As political protests intensified, a horrifying act of communal violence occurred in Mymensingh. Deepu Chandra Das, a 30-year-old Hindu factory worker, was lynched by a mob following unverified allegations of blasphemy. Witnesses say the crowd tied his body to a tree and set it ablaze before moving it to the Dhaka-Mymensingh highway. Chief advisor Muhammad Yunus has denounced
Bangladesh, Bangladesh, right? Yes, it is. So a lot of these things are common with what is happening in India. Like, we as people, like, to be honest, I have been seeing a lot of people talk about this in like, oh, how could this happen? Like Indians, oh, it is a time to reflect of like how Sharif was talked about and then Das was talked about. I'm like, dude, you have a lynching every single week. Have some shame at that point. Like, don't talk like this is something new to you. It's so fucking stupid.
The killing, asserting that there is no place for such heinous crimes in the new Bangladesh. Protesters besieged the residence of India's Assistant High Commissioner in Chattogram, hurling bricks and chanting slogans against what they describe as Indian hegemony. Many demonstrators believe Hadi's assassins are being shielded in India, where former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina currently resides.
Hey, Aman, how are you doing? We are just talking about Bangladesh and just going through what's happening right now.
Unrest has raised significant diplomatic concerns, with India's parliamentary panels describing the situation.
That reminds me, like the stream, please share the stream with everyone you know, please. We need the traction. The Christmas time is always the worst when it comes to YouTube overall. So because they're always not pushing anything, they're just pushing for like Christmas stuff to everyone. So please do help. Please do help. We need to grow. We can't stop the growth right now because we are still new. It means we are being pushed by YouTube, but if it's low, we are not going to go anywhere, and we will be stuck for until like we create a new YouTube channel.
As complex and evolving. In response to the turmoil, the Yunus administration has declared a national day of mourning. While honoring Hadi's sacrifice, the government has called on citizens to resist incitement and hatred. With the February 2026 elections approaching, the stakes could not be higher. The interim government now faces the monumental task of delivering justice for the victims of violence while preventing the country from sliding into further lawlessness.
The situation is very tense, especially with the coming elections, because the elections were already pushed by a few months. Now the elections are like they're going to be stained a little bit, where the anti-India sentiment is going to be really high, while India, on the other hand, is going to push for this idea that, hey, yeah, the elections are coming. This election is governed, and we need to reinstate the Hasina government because this government is not doing good against it. Sorry, hold on. How did? Okay. Oh, that's sweet. Bliss, seriously, this is going so off track for my brain. Anyway, they are going to try and reinstate the Sheikh Hasina government. Take it from me, and when this comes true, I'll be like, hey, look, we said this earlier. Sadly, we are not as popular right now. We are going to have India is still going to interfere because India wants to have a India-friendly government, and it had it with Sheikh Hasina. That's why the 70-year rule was marred by India doing its best to keep her in power, Sheikh Hasina's, and now everything is going to shit. So what exactly happened? There was this news that his name was Deepu Chandra Das. So Deepu Chandra Das was accused of blasphemy. Again, it is a stupid law. It is a law that Bangladesh has, I think. Most Islam governments have this law. High Christian, like really Orthodox Christian governments also have this law. And even the current Hindu, like the BJP also wants to get this law in motion where talking anything against the religion is like blasphemy. It is something that you can be killed for. The father of the deceased said, like, first of all, even if he had said anything against Islam, he should not have been killed. He was killed though anyway, and it has been sources say that nothing really he said against. Maybe he was just in the wrong place at the wrong time and just killed for being a Hindu. Because the polarization that India is doing, as like, oh, India is the only Hindu nation, whatever, makes anti-Hindutva, like the Hindu phobia greater. This is the same argument that is used by Israel for anti-Semitism, calling themselves as the only safe place for Jews, and attacking Israel is not anti-Zionism, it is anti-Semitism, is the same argument India is using, which is obviously bullshit. And it makes the lives of every single Jew and in this case a Hindu, in other countries other than the country that is claiming to be the bastion of their religion, under threat for the work that the government does of this country. Like here, why is Bangladesh so unhappy with India? Bangladesh is unhappy with India because India has been interfering with its government, its elections. Sheikh Hasina, as I will say this again, was supported by India for 17 years. She is still being supported right now because she's in exile in India. And there have been calls for her return, but that has not happened, although I do not think they should happen. But now, because India claims to be the bastion of Hinduism, the Hindu nation or whatever it claims to be, what ends up happening is minorities in other countries, like for example this guy, Dipu Chandra Das, the 27-year-old, are looked at as a reflection of that country. Though he's a Bangladeshi, he's looked at as Indian because he's a Hindu, because India and Hinduism have been tied together by the current government, which made his life end. So it is one of the, like, as much as I would blame the people who actually killed him, I would also put a little bit of responsibility on India as well in this scenario, because without the interference India has done in the lives of Bangladeshis over the past so many fucking years, this would not happen. His death was needless. Speaking to NDTV, Ravilal Das said that his son's body has been tied to a tree and set on fire. He said that the family had been initially heard about the incident on Facebook, adding that gradually more people started talking about it. We found out about it when someone told me that he was badly beaten. Half an hour later, my uncle came and told me they took my son and they tied him to a tree. NDTV quoted Ravilal as saying, while calling the incident horrible, he further said, then they poured kerosene on him, set him on fire. His body was left outside. His burnt body was left outside. This is horrible. This should not happen to anyone. The victim's father also said that Bangladesh government had not provided any assurance. No one from the government has given any assurance. No one said anything, Ravilal told NDTV. Bangladeshi chief advisor Muhammad Yunus earlier told that 7 people had been arrested in connection with the lynching, while the administration on Friday condemned the killing. The Rapid Action Battalion has arrested 7 individuals as suspect to the beating, murder of Dipu Chandra Das, a Sanatan Hindu youth in Buluka, Mayam Singh, the Yunus administration said. According to the statement, the arrested included MD Limon Sarkar, MD Tariq Hussain, I think that just means Muhammad, right? Muhammad Manik Mia, Ershad Ali, Najum Uddin, Alagmir Hussain, and Muhammad Mir Hussain Akon, 46. While I am saddened by the incident, I would still suggest that the Yunus government has at least made an arrest. In reflection of this with India, if something like this happens, there are literally no arrests ever made. So at least on the sense of keeping their face and not just looking away, they are still doing a better job. I am not too much in support of the Yunus government at this moment. We will see. I want them to give up power eventually and really fast and have their own, like, Bangladesh should have a normal elected proper government. And hopefully this happens in February. And it should. I don't know if it will, but hopefully it should. The RB-14 conducted operations on various locations, arrested the aforementioned suspects. We will see what happens with them. Hopefully they do get a proper judicial process. Hopefully Ravilal Das gets justice for his son and gets the required compensations for the rest of his life. Though individuals of the brutal crime will be... that's what this government statement said. Expression of deep contempt over the lynching. There is no place for such violence in New Bangladesh. They keep calling it New Bangladesh. No one involved in the brutal crime will be spared, the statement said. Violence gripped Bangladesh after the death of youth leaders Hadi, with the protests breaking out in different parts of the country. The protest took distinct anti-India overtones. Again, I have mentioned this before, there's a very good reason for it. With agitations taking place near the Indian High Commission in Dhaka and the Assistant High Commission in Chittagong, Khulna and Rajas, according to the earlier HT report. Office of several newspapers, including the Daily Star, were also attacked. Earlier this week, Bangladesh High Commission Riyaz Hamidullah has been summoned to the External Affairs Minister. The minister registered a protest over the deteriorating security environment in the neighboring country and the threat to the Indian mission in Dhaka from the extremist elements. Anyway, so...
And India has...
This is an older news, but we actually did cover this. The visa center in Chittagong has been closed up. The thing that we wanted to go over was also India's response to this. We are going to watch what the print is saying first. And then we are going to watch Sham Sharma show, if I'm not wrong. So this guy, I don't really like him. He is what you call Indian Hindutva propagandist, where he cannot be impartial. I don't know. This, like, he started off with so badly. I was like, fuck this. I have to talk about this. So let's just talk about this first. Moving on here. Thank you. Yes, women equal to men. Yeah. We are going to put this on a little bit of a higher speed because I love Shekhar Gupta. He's nice. He's fine. He's okay. Love is a very strong word here. I'm like okay with him, but he speaks a little bit slowly.
In Dhaka, residences of Indian diplomats, particularly the Deputy High Commissioner, but also Indian consulates in Chittagong, Chattogram now, and Rajshahi. Besides that, there's been much arson and much protests everywhere in Bangladesh. Particularly targeted have been the two major and respected newspapers of Bangladesh, that is the Daily Star and also Pratham Alo. Both very good quality mainstream newspapers. Both offices were ransacked. One was set on fire. Fortunately, journalists escaped without any loss of life. What caused this anger? What lit the fire? Who's the personality who died? Whose assassination started this? What is the politics behind it? Where is Bangladesh headed? Two dates are very important. Next year, that is 2026, in February, in less than 2 months from now, Bangladesh will hold its national election. It will be a national election, plus it will also be a referendum, very importantly, on the same day in the same booth. So just as in India, sometimes when you have elections simultaneously for the state and this Lok Sabha at the same time, you get two machines or two ballot papers. In the old days, now two machines. So on one, you vote for Lok Sabha, in one, you vote for Vidhan Sabha. In Bangladesh, you will have a ballot paper for electing your MP, a second ballot paper answering a simple question on whether you accept that the July Charter, as it's called, that is the charter drawn up in this July by the Constitutional Review Council that was set up by Muhammad Yunus, the chief advisor, to look at amendments in the constitution, whether that charter should be implemented. That referendum will be very key, because that referendum, besides other things, will also decide the powers of the new prime minister, the powers of the president as amended under the charter. I will give you more details as we go along, and also certain powers on appointment. So they will be a further division of powers. Usually in a democracy, you might say division of powers between the executive, the judiciary, parliament, and so on. But in Bangladesh, as has been done in some other countries also, they want a division of powers between the prime minister and the president as well. So this very significant event will take place in Bangladesh on Feb 12. That is the one important date. The second important date is just less than a week away. That is December 25, Christmas Day. That is when Tariq Rahman, the son of Khalida Zia is very sick. She's been on ventilator. She's alive. There are daily health bulletins, but she's in very bad shape. Her party, BNP, Bangladesh Nationalist Party, they are the front runners in all opinion polls right now. And looks like they might come to power, or they might get at least the largest number of seats. Her son is coming in to run the campaign. No, he's supposed to come in on December 25. This trouble has broken out in a way on the eve of his arrival. Because once he arrives and BNP takes charge, because BNP has a cadre. BNP also has a committed vote. BNP's main rival, or BNP's more powerful rival, Awami League is not there because the agitators and the new group have actually got Awami League banned from contesting this election. So this could look like a one-horse race. Although let me caution you, people had made similar presumptions about but let me also caution you, people had made similar presumptions about say Sri Lanka, but a third force emerged out of nowhere because people thought they had got fed up of the two existing forces. So they threw both out and they brought in a new leader and a new party. Something like that can happen in Bangladesh? Theoretically, yes. Right now, however, all polls are telling us that BNP is ahead. So this trouble has arisen on the eve of Tariq Rahman's arrival. Now, Tariq Rahman and his BNP are also not the favorites of protesters who brought down the government of Sheikh Hasina on 5th of August last year, 2024. They think that BNP once again represents the same centrist forces which will follow a kind of foreign policy they don't want, which also will run generally a centrist government. There are many forces within the protesters who want the government to be more Islamic in its character. There are also those who profess that they want a more multi-ethnic, multi-religious identity for Bangladesh, but this is not a settled debate as yet. In this one, if you have one...
The reason, yeah, I can't stand him either. You can say that on the chat. You don't have like Discord is fine, I guess. The only reason I'm listening to him right now is, yeah, I know Shekhar Gupta. The only reason I'm listening to him right now is because he has information. There's nothing else. Like in Marathi, there's a term like Kamapurta Mama, right? That is exactly why we're listening to him. Again, because he has information. There's nothing more to it. Also, he says a lot of things. Sometimes they're correct, sometimes they're wrong. I do believe that in this scenario, he can be honest about things. Because he's not talking like he's centrist, I know, but he's like, I haven't seen coverage on this scenario from anyone else. Everyone else is like, oh, how can the lynching happen? Oh, this is so bad. India never has. He's a gaslighter. Yes, I agree. He's a gaslighter. But everyone else is just gaslighting like, how can a lynching happen in Bangladesh like it has never happened in India? He's at least talking about consequences. Like, I don't want to platform him. I mean, to be fair, we don't we don't have the views anyway. But like, I don't want to platform him. I don't want to give him the space. He gaslights a lot. He deleted his Hiren shit. That is true. His hands are not clean himself, but at the end of the day, we still have to listen to someone, right? Like if he's giving information that is at least unbiased, sure, for now. I'm not gonna take his coverage on the Modi government, to be honest, like seriously.
More conventional party
but Bangladesh, fine,
has been in power in the past, that is seen as a return of the establishment because that's an establishment party. So many of these protesters who became big stars and heroes did not like this idea. Among them was Sharif Usman bin Hadi, 32-year-old, who was assassinated on December 12. So that's another important date. On December 12, he was riding an electric e-rickshaw when two motorcyclists stopped, one driving, the other one pulled out a pistol and shot him in the head.
Let's just go to consequences because we...
However, the driver, who was an accomplice, he's still at large. They said, just by way of word of mouth and rumor, that he had indulged Hasina and also Muhammad Kamruzaman, Dipu Chandra Das. He was caught by the mobs, the people making
the consequences
live videos
for India, Jesus.
Munch, which was a loose platform. Inqilab Munch literally means revolutionary platform, a right-wing platform in cultural fascism. That's how he had become a very provocative speaker who could rouse large crowds and audiences. The news of his death came on the 18th, therefore, and as the news came, riots broke out in Bangladesh. As we speak, it looks like the larger riots have been contained. The Inqilab Munch has said, don't do anything unless you hear from us, we're making up our minds, but still some protests are going on. Some of that is simmering. Indian missions have for now suspended their visa issuing activity, and they've told visa applicants that they will be given fresh dates going ahead. Now we know very well that the strong impulse of the anti-Hasina movement or the anti-Hasina outbreak was also anti-Indian. Why? Because she was seen as a friend of India, or India was seen as a friend of hers. And the fact that she came to India and
at this point, calling her a friend is just like too less. Like Sheikh Hasina should be called as someone who was adopted by India.
refuge in India. She's not a refugee, that she's living in India, and India is not handing her over to Bangladesh despite Bangladesh government's demands. And actually, it's a good idea that India is not, because if India did, everybody remembers what happened with Najibullah. But because when you have mob Raj and you have a widely hated figure, to expect that figure to find any justice or any fair trial away from the mobs is very, very impractical. I don't believe that any country in the world, any civilized country in the world, would have handed someone like Hasina back to Bangladesh in this situation. However, that remains a big sensitive point or point of anger with these forces. So National Citizen Party, one of the parties that has come up lately, they declared, for example, that we are at war with India. Its leader
Papaksh won the print 0 because I don't have to use a board for this shit. I can
Muhammad
just be
Nahid Islam
wrong.
said, we have to fight against Indian hegemony. Now, Hadi himself became famous lately. We know that he was one of the most prominent protesters against Sheikh Hasina. Then he was very visible, and he'd been visible in protests earlier also, going back to 2016. But lately he had said 3 things which made him prominent and also got him headlines in India. So first, he said, we are okay with our neighbors, but our neighbors should not be masters. He's not referring to Myanmar. He's obviously referring to India, that neighbors should not be masters. Number 2,
He's not wrong, because India has tried to control Bangladeshi politics for a very long time.
he said we have to rethink and reshape our foreign policy. The third thing he did was he displayed a map of what he called as Greater Bangladesh. And then this imagination sort of ran riot because maps appeared on Bangladeshi social media, right-wing Bangladeshi.
Okay, if you can find a map of Greater Bangladesh, let me know, because I'm looking for it right now. I don't know where to find it.
Social media among Hadi's followers, looking at quote unquote restoring the Bengal kingdom back to the days of Sirajuddaula, or what Sirajuddaula had lost to the British, to East India Company in the Battle of Plassey in 1757. Now that is irredentism on steroids. However, these sentiments were rising in Bangladesh, and because Hadi shared this map as well, Hadi became even more prominent and even more talked about. I'm sure this worked very well within his support base. Now, 2 things have happened because of this assassination. One, he was a candidate in Dhaka 8 constituency as an independent, but he was also contesting against the BNP candidate, which means he and his supporters were also opposed to the BNP, today's frontrunner party, a mainstream party which has been there for a long time, which has preceded the Yunus-led so-called revolution, or counter-revolution as more and more people are calling it. How will the forces who carry the same belief, who share the same belief, now see the election process? And will peace and law and order be maintained to hold the elections on Feb 12, although the government has said that they will employ nearly 1 million troops and police personnel for conducting these one-day elections, presuming that an election is still held in
for
good order.
understanding
We
the
are all hoping that it does, because Bangladesh needs stability. What they have right now is not even a caretaker government. This is a little bit of a mob rule. The country needs more stability.
It does have a caretaker government. Like, that's what he's gaslighting about.
India also wants more stability on its borders. It doesn't suit India at all if any anarchy builds up in Bangladesh. However, along with the
See, any anarchy that is building up in Bangladesh is good for the Indian international hegemony. Like, that's why I would keep saying, like, Bangladeshis, if they're smart, are not going to push forward with anarchy or protests in general. They are going to get a elected democratic government, because if they don't have that, if they keep having anarchy, it is a profit for India, because they can always say, we might have to invade to save the minorities, like every other country who has ever done that, looking at US.
election, as I told you, there will be the other question. There will be a referendum on the July Charter, as it's called. This July Charter is a very wide-ranging document, that wants major changes in the constitutional order of Bangladesh and in the division of powers as well. I will list some of the highlights of this charter, July Charter. Number 1 is to reduce the Prime Minister's power. That is to make sure nobody becomes as powerful as Sheikh Hasina was at one point. How will those powers be reduced? Some of those powers will be pushed upstairs to the president. To the president, from where will the president come? Who will elect the president? So importantly, Bangladesh right now has a single chamber parliament. Now Bangladesh will have a 2-chamber parliament, or a bicameral parliament. So there will be a body like Lok Sabha. There will be a house of the people like Lok Sabha, like we have Lok Sabha. But there will also be a house above it, an upper house like a Rajya Sabha or the American Senate. Members of the upper house will be chosen on proportionate basis by parties that win seats in the National Assembly. So in the lower house, if you get 30% seats, then you can choose 30% members in the Senate or the upper house as well. These 2 houses then, the lower house, which is elected directly, and the upper house, which it elects proportionately, members of both will vote to elect a president. And this election will be by secret ballot. So there will be no party whip. This will be by secret ballot. This might be a good idea. This might be a bad idea. This will have to pass the test of time. However, I will show you
Secret
a weakness
ballots
there.
are always
The
a terrible
weakness is
idea.
if there is an outside power within Bangladesh. If it was Pakistan with such a dispensation, the army will decide who will be voted president. That president will have additional powers. That president will not just be a titular president. Then there will be term limits for the prime minister. So it's not as if prime minister can get elected 4 times, not like that. Once again, this is a retrospective correction on the Hasina situation. Then there is an amendment that says that
This is actually quite amazing. A term limit for the prime minister and the president is an amazing thing. I've always envied America for having it. Like, I know what what is Trump is doing. Trump wants to run again in 2028, but having a term limit is fucking amazing. That ensures that the transfer of power always happens, and like no one ends up being a king.
in Parliament, no whip system will apply on MPs except during a no confidence motion or during a confidence motion. All other laws, MPs can vote as they wish. Then, of course, it talks about judicial independence, independence of Election Commission, Anti-Corruption Commission, CAG, Public Service Commission, increased women's quota. All the rest of these are motherhood and apple pie ideas except one. And that one idea is borrowed from Pakistan. That says that once a government's tenure ends and a fresh election is to be held, then it is not as if the existing government will become caretaker. A new caretaker government will be set up and that will hold elections and then go away, hand over power to the elected government. That's the system that the Pakistanis follow as well. Now, as far as the referendum...
That's a terrible system, to be honest with you. Because the caretaker government can just suspend elections for how much ever longer. You cannot introduce a mediary government between two governments.
is concerned, there's been a twist there. Because initially, in the referendum draft, there were specific questions being asked on several issues which are promised in the July Charter. Then a controversy arose that how could a person answer with one yes or no for all these 4 questions. So what did the establishment do, the Bangladeshi establishment? They said, all right, we're not asking you any questions. If you find that too cumbersome, we will just ask you if you accept the July Charter, which means you get a blanket clearance for all of the July Charter and you can then implement everything mentioned there in 66 pages. This then becomes a very sweeping referendum. And you know what? I hate to bring Pakistan back in here because I know that the Bangladeshi commitment, even the Bangladeshi streets commitment to democracy, Bangladeshi's army's commitment to democracy, definitely, or Bangladesh's army's commitment so far to staying out of politics and power is much greater than in Pakistan. But at the same time, I must mention to you an example from Pakistan. In 1984, General Zia-ul Haq, who was Chief Marshal Law Administrator and President, he thought he needed some legitimacy. So he decided to hold a referendum. What did that referendum ask? It just raised one question. I will read that question to you. It's a big lengthy for one question and for people of Pakistan in 1984 to process and then to say yes or no on that question. But still, you must hear this question. This question is whether the people of Pakistan endorse the process initiated by General Muhammad Zia-ul Haq, the president, for bringing the laws of Pakistan in conformity with the injunctions of Islam as laid down in the Holy Quran and Sunnah of the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, and for the preservation of Islamic ideology of Pakistan, for the continuation and consolidation of that process, and for the smooth and orderly transfer of power to the elected people of Pakistan. This referendum was held on 19th December 1984. Watch the numbers. How many people said yes? If you say, do you like the Islamic system? Do you like your laws to become Islamic laws? Do you like, if so, do you like what General Zia-ul Haq is doing? Should Pakistan continue to go the Islamic way? How many people will say no to this in the Islamic Republic of Pakistan? That too in 1984. In any case, even if somebody said no, they would face great risk, or they would presume that they faced great risk to their lives. So how many votes of yes did Zia-ul Haq get for this question? 98.5%. In fact, I would have liked to meet the 1.5% who voted against it or find out what happened to them. He got 98.5% vote. When you get vote like that, that means the election or referendum was a sham. What did he do? The last line in the question was peaceful transfer of power to a civilian government. So in the course of time, he had to hold an election. In January 1985, he held an election, after which he and his other generals got together. It was a partyless election. They got together and they appointed Muhammad Khan Junejo as Prime Minister of Pakistan. And once again, a familiar story played out. Muhammad Khan Junejo immediately demanded from Zia that he lift the martial law. He said at one point in his parliament that martial law and an elected government could not exist together. That part of the speech was expunged from Pakistan TV. However, December 30 that year in 85, Zia-ul Haq had to withdraw martial law. An uneasy relationship continued between Ziaul Haq and his own handpicked, partyless prime minister who was just a lightweight feudal. He was elected mainly because he was a devotee of a very powerful religious preacher from Sindh, Pir of Pagara or Pir Pagara. Zia did not like him. This tension continued. On 29th of May 1988, Zia appeared on Pakistan TV, dissolved his parliament, all provincial assemblies under the 8th Amendment in the Constitution, which he had inserted. He had the power. And then what happened? Within about 3 months of that, in fact, almost exactly in 3 months of that, Ziaul Haq was gone, along with probably that box of exploding mangoes in that C-130 over Bahawalpur. I'm only giving you this story so we understand how these sweeping referendums work. I'm not saying what happened in Pakistan will happen in Bangladesh. I'm just pointing to the sweeping nature of a referendum and the kind of consequences it might have.
Even though he is a gaslighter, he is not wrong. The people of Bangladesh need to be very careful with what is happening right now. We are going to look at what Hadi had to say before, and like this is one of the biggest reasons why the whole thing started as well, because he is anti-India and he was killed right before elections. And do I always put it on you?
Hegemony. I think if you ask the people, even as I'm a faculty of a private university, so for understanding the psyche, I always ask this question with the university students, rickshaw pullers, and all kinds of people. When I mention the term Bangladesh, in our mindset, we only think the land of Bangladesh. And we also think we are captured by India. We have no capacity, no capabilities. We are always dependent on the Indian satisfaction. If India permits me to go abroad, yes, we can go. And if India doesn't allow me to have a cup of tea with my neighbors like Sri Lanka, Pakistan, Afghanistan, or any others, no, it cannot be. I think we have to rethink this position because, you know, it is a framework. Bangladesh is in the Indian territory. No, I think Bangladesh, what will I say actually? When we say Bangladesh, we don't think we have a big sea. The resources of this sea, not only water, and we have good neighbors. We can go by this sea, we can connect by this sea. So the first fact is, we would like to connect all our territories, including our sea. The second one is, if I just give an example, how Indian hegemony works here. First one, you think, our cinema hall or movie theaters, the Indian movies got released, huge people go there, enjoy the movies, fine. But the Bangladeshi cinema don't get any special treatment in India, even in West Bengal or Kolkata. The second one is, all the India channels, second and third class channels, are open in Bangladesh. Do you think they only telecast the cinemas or series or dramas? No, they sell the advertisements by the multinational corporations. So the investors, the corporations, give the money to the Indian channels, but no Bangladeshi channel is open in India. So by this system,
basically there's no bilateral trade between Bangladesh and India. That is what he's saying. Like, there's no bilateral trade. Bangladeshi companies are not allowed in India. They do not operate in India. They are not sold. They can't sell anything in India. India also, through Adani, sells Bangladesh a lot of electricity. Now, I have always wished for a situation in Asia where it works like the EU, but the India kind of shits on it every time.
India is creating hegemony on Bangladesh by cultural activism, but mainly they are doing the business. They are discriminating with the people of Bangladesh, what business can do actually by this part. So our strategy is, if Bangladesh allows 10 channels of India to telecast, of course, India must permit 10 channels of Bangladesh to telecast in India. And the fact is, this is the mindset established by the Awami regime and fascist regime. We are bound, and we have to be very loyal to these Indian narratives because we don't have any other neighbors. But it is not true. Yes, we have some good neighbors, and we had some policy making the checks and balance before the Awami regime of 15 years. So I think India will be alone if India cannot understand the psyche, the people of Bangladesh. So this is the time for a new journey.
See, what he was asking for literally a bilateral agreement. I'm like, this is the basic of what it is. Like, the reason why Bangladesh is anti-India is because India is not bilaterally trading with Bangladesh and looking at it like only as a seller, not just someone who can sell them things. Because in India especially, when you have something like this, we look at whenever something like we straight up shit on Bangladeshis. We have called Bangladeshis as infiltrators. We have called them like Islamists. We have called them unwelcome. Where currently in India, people are getting murdered for being called Bangladeshis.